Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.
And transgender athletes, biological boys, cannot compete in female sports in Mississippi. A new law has just been passed. Governor Tate Reeves signed the bill today. Reeves said he never imagined dealing with this issue, but that Biden left him with no choice after signing an executive order encouraging transgenderism in children. Human Rights Campaign called the bill transphobia and a symbol of hate. The rule goes into effect on July 1st, though there is a possibility it will face legal challenges. And how Speaker Nancy Pelosi says gun reform is critical and Democrats won't stop until they get the job done. NTD speaks to a gun advocate who's pushing back.
Opponents of the new gun control legislation push back against the argument that stricter gun laws will lead to less violence and crime. Economist and gun rights advocate John Lott says, on the contrary, access to firearms can help people protect themselves and their families, especially in a climate of defunding police officers and increased crime. He says these extended background checks could increase the timeline of getting a gun, but that won't necessarily lower crime.
I mean, basically what they want to do with this law is to make it so that the government can delay completing a background check for 20 business days. So when you include weekends in there, you're talking about almost a month of time that they could delay.
Lott says if the goal is to encourage background checks, law-abiding citizens shouldn't have to bear the entire burden.
You want to encourage people to go and do the background checks. You don't want to penalize them. Why make them have to pay $125 in D.C. Or even $55 in some places?
He says in D.C., each gun requires a background check. So if one person is approved to own a gun, they'd have to pay for a background check each time they want to purchase a new firearm. He notes stricter background checks meant millions of people have been denied gun ownership in error. Some law-abiding citizens were turned down for having a name similar to someone else with a criminal history. Lott says these mistakes actually hurt minority communities.
It's one thing to stop a felon from buying a gun. It's another thing to stop somebody simply because they have a name similar to a felon from buying a gun. And the thing is, people tend to have names similar to others in their racial groups.
He says the solution would be to push government background checks to follow the same standards as private company background checks, which he says have fewer mistakes. Lott says if the filibuster remains, he doesn't think the bill will pass in the Senate. Terry Wu and Christina Kim, NTD News.
The new stimulus bill comes with some tax benefits, so how can you take advantage of them? NTD's Colin Fredrickson reports.
The motion is adopted.
4 tax benefits have just been passed in the recent stimulus bill. 3 of them involve increasing tax credits.
Credits subtract the taxable income dollar for dollar. So say we have $10,000 in credits and you have $5,000 in tax bills associated. $10,000 in credit would wipe out the $5,000 taxes due and also provide a $5,000 refund.
For the Earned Income Tax Credit, childless workers get 3 times more, from $530 to $1,500. The 65 age limit is eliminated, and childless workers can claim the credit at age 19 instead of 25.
The Earned Income Tax Credit is basically, set at levels for keeping jobs and employment open, right? And so as employers and as employees, you're earning tax credits for actually working.
For the child care tax credit, families get 50% of their expenses for kids under 13. $4,000 when there's 1 child, and $8,000 for more. Previously, it was 25 to 30%, with maximums of $3,000 and $6,000. The child tax credit has now risen from $2,000 to $3,000 for children under 18, and $3,600 for every child under 6. And the employment benefits, which are normally taxed, are tax-free for your first $10,200 if you made less than $150,000. Many taxpayers face a big problem. They don't know whether they should file their next tax return.
The credits are really taking place in 2021, and the stimulus and the unemployment are taking place in 2020. So the more concern right now is the focus is on what should I do to get my stimulus? Should I file an early tax return so I can get it and maybe get the prior one that I missed?
Experts recommend sitting down with professional preparers and consulting with CPAs to get a good opinion.
People really have to strategically think about their stimulus packages and stimulus refunds and how to best file their returns.
The IRS hasn't clarified if it will extend the filing deadline. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
It's far and away the biggest consumer complaint to the Federal Communications Commission, and if it feels like you've been getting more robocalls recently than during the past year of the pandemic, a recent report says you probably have. Mandy Gaither explains why and ways to stop the calls.
Getting more robocalls again? You're not alone.
If you're feeling like you're getting more robocalls, it's because you are getting more robocalls.
New data from UMail, a robocall prevention service that tracks those calls across the U.S., says Americans received more than 4.6 billion robocalls in February, up 27% from January. But why? Point to the pandemic.
As we seem to be coming out of the pandemic, call centers are opening, and therefore there's more robocalls. And the reason for that is there's really no point to making a robocall unless the person on the other end is going to press 1 or call you back. And you need a person when they do that.
To avoid those unwanted calls, the FCC says don't answer calls from unknown numbers. Beware, caller ID showing a local number doesn't necessarily mean it's a local caller. If you do answer, don't respond to questions and don't hit a button if prompted to. Scammers often use this trick to identify potential targets. Never give out personal information. You can also talk to your phone company about call blocking tools they may have and check into apps that you can download to your mobile device to block unwanted calls. Finally, make sure your number is registered on the National Do Not Call Registry. Mandy Gaither.
Our next story takes us to Taiaroa Head, a nature preserve in New Zealand, where a camera captured a rare and silly sight. The albatross is one of the most impressive creatures in the animal kingdom, most of the time. Luckily, despite its bird bones and the bungled landing, this albatross did not appear hurt. Who knew birds had such trouble rolling over on their backs? But while it may be an embarrassing moment for him, he certainly gave us humans something to tweet about. And looking for a vacation? You could own your very own slice of Caribbean paradise. Little Ragged Island in the Bahamas, also known as St. Andrews, is up for sale. The 730-acre island boasts freshwater ponds, snorkeling, and sailing opportunities, and even has its own flamingos. Your nearest neighbor would be a 10-minute boat ride away. The island is on sale through Concierge Auctions, a U.S. real estate company that auctions properties of the highest bidder. To join the auction, you need a $100,000 deposit. The island is listed for $19.5 million, but there is no minimum bid. Bidding opens March 26th and closes March 31st. A number of island brokers have reported a huge spike in demand for private islands since the pandemic started.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call and request NTD on your cable provider. Thank you for watching. See you next time.